Yeah.
Kept calling. I was texting and she just was not responding. And so I called my boys and said they were at the high school. And I was like, you need to go home right now. And they found her unresponsive, laying face down. And I remember standing there and really just kind of going, okay. She and I are both crying. She's like, I love you. I'm sorry. And I'm like, and it was literally like, all I could hear was God say, Jen, as much as you love her, I love her more.
Yeah.
And you have to surrender her to me. And that is the hardest thing to do as a mom.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Halfway to Sunday. We are so glad that you are here. And my friends, I am so excited I get to have this conversation with Jen Robb. And Jen, you are a mom, a nurse practitioner, a wellness coach, and you are the founder of Warrior Mom. And I cannot wait, but welcome to Halfway to Sunday.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And my friend, we start each episode with tell me something good. And so, Jen, what is bringing you joy this week?
So this week I had two separate moms reach out to me that had found my book.
Mm.
And it offered them hope. And so
Yeah.
that is something to be joyful about.
Yeah. I am so excited to dig into that because I think that it's going to be hopeful for so many friends listening and so many people. So I am going to tell you that in a very different way, I have been reading a book series with my daughter, and I am finally making progress. She has finished the series because she has had more time, I guess, to read it. I don't know, but I'm so excited to actually be making progress, and we have the funnest conversations because it is a fantasy series, and it is so much fun. It's ridiculous. It's nothing no, not earth-shattering at all, but it's so much fun to have these conversations with her when I get to a certain part, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, are you there yet?" And so it's been so much fun. But Jen, speaking of books, I'm so excited to get into yours, but would you introduce yourself to our Halfway to Sunday crew?
Yeah. So Jen Robb, I live outside of Dallas, Texas. I've been a nurse practitioner since 2012, but I've been in medicine since 2001.
Okay.
Been married to my college sweetheart for 25 years. We have three kids, 20, 19, and 17. I'm super glad to talk about this because I think it needs to be talked about, right?
Yeah.
Not just the mental health piece, but also the fact that God is still there, right? Even in the hardest
Yeah.
parts of our struggles. And I think that that's like the biggest thing that I want people to know is that He is there and we can never mistake His delay for His absence.
Would you, for anybody who is meeting you for the first time right now, would you maybe walk us through how this book even came to be? Maybe that first night where things happened with Chloe, your daughter, and how that changed everything and brought out that warrior mom inside of you.
So Chloe's journey really started when she was around 12. She started
Mm.
having anxiety, depression, ultimately leading to self harm. And we navigated that, getting her counseling and things like that. But really, the worst part happened on April 4th of 23 when she had been seemingly to do better, and
Mhm.
was, doing okay, still in counseling. And I had gone to work. And so we had pulled her out midway through her freshman year to homeschool her, because the school was just adding to her anxiety and depression.
Right.
Plus, there were a lot of not so good influences that we needed her to be away from. But
Mm.
that day I had gone into the clinic to see patients and I couldn't get a hold of her. And mama's intuition, there's just something not right. I
Yeah.
kept calling. I was texting and she just was not responding. And so I called my boys and said they were at the high school. And I was like, you need to go home right now. And they found her unresponsive, laying face down in a pool of vomit with her face in a pillow. Unknown of what really had happened, but of course they called 911. Ambulance comes, we get her to the hospital. Um, and through the lab testing, we find out that her alcohol level was 4 times the lethal limit.
Wow.
So she had broken into a liquor cabinet that had 2 locks on it
Mm.
that day because she wanted to quiet the noise in her head.
Yeah.
So all of those feelings were coming up, and she really just wanted to quiet it. But, being in that ER and the doctor looking at me saying that there's really no reason she should be alive,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a gut punch for a mom, right? Because of
Yeah.
course you don't want your children to hurt, right? And we realized at that moment that the depth of her pain was actually worse than she'd ever let on.
Mm.
And so it was kind of in that moment that I knew that we were gonna have to fight differently, right? We were gonna
Yeah.
have to change the way that we were approaching this. And it was through all of this, when we get her home, she's still covered in vomit. She was so weak, she couldn't shower herself. A lot of that was, physical weakness, but also just emotional and mental exhaustion. So I had to put her, in the shower and wash her hair because it was just coated with vomit. And I remember standing there and really just kind of going, okay. She and I are both crying. She's like, I love you. I'm sorry. And I'm like, and it was literally like all I could hear was God say, Jen, as much as you love her, I love her more.
Yeah.
And you have to surrender her to me. And that is the hardest thing to do as a mom
Yeah.
because letting go of control is hard for us. But when we relinquish that control over to someone who is far more capable of handling those burdens than we are,
Yeah.
it can release us a little bit and kind of free us up to be more present for the child that needs us, right? As opposed to just being there trying to control every aspect of the things.
Jen, walk us through that surrender in that moment of you're in this situation that is so hard as a parent, as someone who loves someone who is hurting. You're in this situation and you have to surrender in that moment. What did that look like between you and God?
Well, I think when we hear the word surrender, right, we often think of like
Yeah.
the waving the white flag, like we're out, we're done, right? And that's really not what it was.
Right. Yeah.
It really came to a position of me just not trying to control every aspect of the outcome,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It didn't mean that I didn't stop fighting for her. It didn't mean that I didn't that I stopped showing up and loving her
Yeah.
and praying for her and taking her to appointments and all of those things. It just meant that I released some of the control,
Mhm.
right? And I laid it at the feet of Jesus and I said, you are going to have to fix this because I'm out of ideas.
Right. Right.
And I just think as moms, we really get stuck in this cycle of we have to fix everything and we have to control everything because that's really what we do all the time, right?
Yeah.
We control, especially when our kids are younger, like where they go, who they talk to, what they eat for dinner. We do all of those things, and we're so
Yeah.
accustomed to being the gatekeeper of the family. But when you have a child that's really struggling, you have to realize that it's not your burden to carry and you can't always fix it. This
Yeah.
is different than when your kid falls down and scrapes their knee and you
Yeah.
pick them up, you kiss it, you wipe it off, and you put a Band-Aid on it because now you fixed it, right?
Yeah.
You're the hero. But in these instances, fighting for your kid looks different because you can't fix it for them. They have to do the work to heal
Yeah.
themselves and heal their brains, but what we can do is pray for them and then lay them at the feet of Jesus and say, "Help her in the way that I cannot."
Yeah. I think for everyone listening, I don't think that's any secret that the mental health crisis in our world is just it can be paralyzing. Especially as a parent when you're watching your kid walk through this really hard situation and it could push up against things that you have struggled with depending on the situation. And so I think that if I could just be vulnerable for a second in that just this is a really hard conversation to have even for me. There was a season where I did lose somebody to their mental health where they made a different choice. And I this is a tough conversation to have. And so I first wanted to thank you for having it with me and for your vulnerability to want to help people that are walking through these really hard things. I do want to ask you, just as you said surrender, what it made me think of is Abraham and Isaac, just laying your child on the altar. And that is the one of the most difficult things that you can do as a parent. And so how did you wrestle with God to get to that point where you could say, because it's so easy to maybe have that lip service of, yeah, 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 it's just surrender. But in practice, it is the most difficult thing. So how, I guess, did you get to that point?
I don't really know that there was like a certain, like, I can't really tell you like how. I just know that when I was standing in that shower with her
Yeah.
and she was too weak to shower herself, it was literally like God was saying, this is all that's left. You did what
Mhm.
you knew to do and it
Yeah.
didn't work. Right. I feel like in the moments when outcomes are uncertain, right? Surrender is just saying, Lord, I trust you with what I can't see and
Yeah.
I release what I can't carry, right? It was simply just loosening the grip a little bit and praying over her and fixing and allowing God to take control when there was nothing left for me to do. I had done
Yeah.
all I knew to do, right?
Yeah.
And it was literally just about saying, okay, God, you're going to have to fix her one way or the other, right? And the outcome sometimes is not what we want.
Yeah.
And that is a very hard place to be. But in the end, he knows better than we do,
Yeah.
right? And it's just about surrender. It's not about quitting. It's about just shifting the weight from my shoulders.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
that's where the peace comes in, right? Even when we're in the middle of the hardest storms of our lives, and it doesn't
Mhm.
have to just be mental health, right? I mean, there's lots of aspects to this, right? Like it can be
Absolutely.
the spouse or it can be with our jobs or whatever. We all walk through very different storms in our lives.
Yeah.
And surrendering in the storm is literally just saying, "Okay, God, I'm going to trust you that you have this when I can't see," right? Just like Peter
Yeah.
did when he got out of the boat,
Yeah.
right? Like that's like the one story that's always out in my mind. You're better off out of the boat with Jesus than in the boat without him.
That's good. That's so good.
So you have to like, so I can't say like surrender like there's a physical step. It's literally just
Yeah.
being in that moment of complete and utter brokenness, right? And the
Mhm.
most helpless place I've ever been as a mom.
Yeah.
You know, especially as a nurse practitioner, right? Like I fix things for a living, right? Like, I mean, you put me in the
Right.
hospital setting and I can run a code and I can, I can do all kinds of crazy things and help people and save their lives.
Yeah.
But when it comes to your kid and you can't fix it, you can't kiss it and make it better,
Yeah.
the only option was to hand her over to Jesus and say, "Please help her."
Yeah. You brought up your medical training, and so I'd love for you to speak to that for a second. Was it helpful or was it not in that moment? Because you think, like you said, you have the answers, you have the training, and yet you found yourself in a situation where it was a lot different. So did it help in that situation or was it even harder?
Being in medicine, right? Like I know the tools, right? Like I know how to navigate the systems, right? I know how to
Mhm.
deal with, psychiatrists and counselors and other physicians. Like I know how to deal with that. I know how to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
But when it's your kid, you kind of lose like your normal medical sensibilities, right? Because
Yeah.
there's such a level of hurt and heartbreak when you're watching your child suffer, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what I learned in that is that my credentials, they don't make me invincible to the hard things, right? But it did help in the fact that I knew how to ask those questions, which is the biggest things that I want moms to learn. When you're advocating for your kid, you know your kid the best.
Right.
When we walk into a counselor's office and they're meeting Chloe for the first time, they don't know her. They don't know her
Yeah.
body language, her facial expressions, the subtleties of her moods like you do, right? And so you have to be able in those moments to advocate for your child because you know better, right? And like the biggest thing that comes up with this for me is when I took Chloe, her pediatrician recommended that I take her to a psychiatrist. We go see the psychiatrist, and it's just, of course, it was very much like, well, she needs to be on these 5 medications.
Mm.
No, no, that's not what we're doing, right? Like, I'm not trying to put a Band-Aid on it. And while I believe that medicine can be helpful in managing the symptoms of anxiety, I didn't want it to be the crutch, right? Because
Mm.
we needed to get to a root cause. And it's so in that moment, you have to speak up and say, I know her, right? Or if they put her on a medication, one of the medicines that they ultimately, we got it down to one, she started having horrible side effects too.
Mm.
Well, I know my kid, right? And of course, when I
Right.
called, they're like, well, let's just add another one to combat those side effects.
Right.
Absolutely not. Right. And that's the thing about being an advocate for your kid is being able to speak up and ask those hard questions
Mhm.
and working together with the experts that are trying to help your child. Right.
Yeah.
Because you really do need a relationship with them where you help each other, but it can't be just because they're the expert. They tell you
Right.
exactly what to do, and you just kind of take your hands off. That's not it at all.
Mm.
I really want moms to know that you have to step in and advocate, especially when it comes to counselors, right? We changed counselors
Mm.
3 times before we found the counselor that was right for Chloe. And
Yeah.
that counselor she was a godsend. And so it's okay to say, you're a really nice person, but you're not the right fit. That's
Yeah.
okay. Right? It doesn't make you mean or make you a villain. It's okay.
Mhm.
And I think that moms need to hear that. That it's
Yeah.
okay sometimes to push back against an expert when you are the expert on your child.
I think this is such an important piece of this because being an advocate for your child is a huge piece of this, like you said, and I love that you went there. But I also know that to do that, you yourself have to be in a place where you can. And so I would love for you to speak to what that looked like for you. How were you able to walk through this? What aspect of your faith really guided you in this? And then who was your support system who was advocating for you?
So I talk a lot about this in the book because the way that moms show up for their child is really ultimately dependent on how you take care of yourself,
Hmm.
right? Because and I don't mean like self-care in the lavish sense, right? We're going to spas and we're spending a lot of money and
Right.
we're gone for 8 hours. But when Chloe was at her lowest point, I was at my lowest point too, right? Because
Mm.
I had been doing everything I could do really to keep her alive. Like that was my mission in life at that moment was to keep
Yeah.
her alive. But doing that, I lost sight of who I was.
Yeah.
And you cannot show up for your kid in the best way when you are burnt out and exhausted. So you have to find something that refreshes your soul, right?
Yeah.
That pours directly back into you so that you can step up and be the best version of you for your child.
Yeah.
For me, that was listening to worship music, right? If I was driving in the car, it was always about listening to worship music and just having that godly influence pour back into my mind, into my heart.
Yeah.
For other moms, it looks differently. Maybe it's taking a 10-minute walk in the sunshine, or, it's just sitting quietly with a cup of coffee for 10 minutes. But you
Yeah.
have to find something that helps you be able to step up so that you can continue to fight the battle, right? So advocating isn't just about taking care of our children and advocating for our child. It's about advocating for us as moms
Yeah.
and what role. And the other thing is if our kids watch us stay in a place of complete burnout and exhaustion, what are we mirroring to them? Right? Like I felt like if I didn't take care of me,
Yeah.
then I am mirroring to her that I'm not important. And that's not at all what I want to mirror for my daughter or for my other two children. Right? Like
Right.
they're important. And self-care doesn't have to be lavish and expensive, but it is necessary.
Yeah.
And I feel like oftentimes moms, we get lost in this, well, I don't have time for me. But then you think about, well, now you're burnout and you're exhausted. And how do you show up? You're
Yeah.
snappy, right? You don't want to talk to anybody. You're angry. You're short tempered. And when your child is struggling, do they need you to be short tempered?
Yeah.
Or do they need you to show up from a place of grace and mercy and where you can speak softly to them? And that is really like how what I learned, like when I was at my lowest point, is like, what are you
Yeah.
doing, Jen? Like, you're no good to anybody.
I even as you're talking, I'm thinking of the friend listening who maybe doesn't have a child walking through a similar thing, but is a special needs mom or there's so many aspects of motherhood where it's easy to get lost. And um I think that what I hear you say too is just like this really empowering message for all moms, but especially for those moms who are going through these really hard things where your kid is suffering and to I hate this expression just because it sounds so cheesy, but just to put that oxygen mask on yourself first. And I love that you've given these tangible examples of what that could look like, but also encouraging people to do that for whatever works for them and whatever fills their soul. And so I do wanna get into your book because I think that it is such a beautiful example of fighting for your kid, but it's also this encouragement and hope-filled message for moms everywhere. So will you tell us a little bit more about the book and how that came to be, how Warrior Mom came to be?
So we had gone through her struggles, right? And so in the middle part of 24, she was doing really well. And she is still like a thriving 17-year-old now. So she is, doing really well. Um, but I really felt like this nudge from God saying, you need to write the book. I am
Mm.
not an author. I've never wanted to be an author. Growing up, I didn't even like to read books. So, I just feel
Right.
like I wrestled with that for a while. Like, but everything God was just pointing me like, you need to write a book. Moms need to know that they're not alone, right? Especially as
Right.
mental health crisis continues to climb. And so it was born purely out of obedience, right? Like I didn't really know what I was going to write, how I was going to write it, but he was there every step. And so I really feel like the words that are on those pages are the words that he gave me to write, right? And they are all
Right.
meant to offer hope. The book tells our story, but it tells it from my perspective, right? As her mother and the how
Mhm.
I felt, because I want moms to know that like I understand you. I see you. I hear you, right? Like I get what you're feeling. But then it also offers hope, right? So there's 5 phases that it walks through, like to build your battle plan and kind of where you are and helping you through each of those phases. And
Mm.
each phase I try to give strategies and helpful tips to help you along the way, scripture to help you along the way as well, still while telling the story.
Yeah. Would you walk us through maybe what that looked like for you as you're writing it? Was it a release? Was it hope-filled, or was it just really hard to relive that?
Actually, it was pretty cathartic,
Mm.
right? Because of course as moms, we see this and we see our kids struggling and we carry that pain and oftentimes we bury it deep down in there. And so writing it out was very cathartic, which when you think about when people are struggling with anxiety or depression or any other mental health things,
Mhm.
oftentimes one of the ways that they help them is by journaling,
Mhm.
right? It's by helping it's getting that out and those feelings and those emotions out of your body and putting it on paper, right? And then you can almost release it a little bit better.
Mm,
So, I mean, that's what, Chloe's counselor used to tell Chloe that all the time. If you're feeling like a particular way one day, write it out.
mm,
So, it's cathartic in a way, but through the phases of the book, I think the one phase that probably sticks out the most for me, like in the writing it, was what is the refining phase. And in the book, I tell the story of when we went glass blowing as a family. And you think about what glass does and how hot it has to get, right?
yeah,
And then in the end, you've created like one particular thing. Chloe created this beautiful blown glass bowl. And she took the chips of glass and all of that thing to melt it down, and she stuck it into the furnace, which is running at like 2,300 degrees or something crazy,
right.
right? And it melts this glass into a liquid. And then in the end, after some molding of it, she got this beautiful multicolored bowl that was, fluted on all the sides and stuff, right? I still have that bowl out. But I think that that's a perfect representation
Yeah,
of what the refining fire does for us,
yeah,
right? We were there, we're in the fire, we're struggling, our kids struggling, we're exhausted, and we are being stretched and molded in ways that we would have never asked for, right?
yeah,
But God is teaching you something in that. God can use that pain in that refining season for purpose.
yeah,
And I think that that's important. And we also have to know that, like, we're not alone in the fire. I think oftentimes we feel like because we don't, when we're in the fire and it's so hot and you're being pressed and it's,
yeah.
like just awful. You often think that God's not there, right? Like you just like he's abandoned and he's gone.
Right.
But in the Bible, what does it say when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in the fire? Who was standing
Yeah,
there? Right. And like
yeah,
I mentioned that story in the book because while I think it's the hardest phase of the whole journey, because you don't know how long that phase is going to be. Right.
yeah,
And in this Amazon society that we live in, we often want a very quick phase. And sometimes God's
yeah,
like, no, no, sister, you're just going to stay there until you're refined, until you come out and you're molded differently than where you when you went into the fire.
yeah,
And I just think that that's we can't lose hope when we're in those really hard places. We can't lose faith. We have to know and trust that God is still there every single step of the way, even in the hardest seasons.
yeah,
So like that's kind of like where in the book I really try to walk you through those phases and giving you practical tips, but also biblical context
yeah.
for those too.
It would be so easy to walk through this really hard thing and be grateful that you're moving to the other side of it or headed that way. But what you're doing with this book and with Warrior Moms is you're extending a hand back to someone else who needs it to say, "Okay, I know the way." And that's really hard. I don't think I can overstate that enough that it's really hard to not only kind of relive that again as you're writing it, but also going, someone else's pain is also fueling this mission. And so I do want to honor that. And I do want to just speak into that for a second of just a thank you, because I think that that will be so helpful when someone else knows the way, they can shine a light into that hope. And I would love to go back to something that you said before, though, because you said that no one knew what was going on. You said that a lot of people didn't know that this was a really hard season for you and your family. And so, what did that look like then? You wrote this book that explained a lot of things. So, how was that received in your community? And how, yeah, maybe how could you help someone walking through this who does feel like they are alone?
Yeah. So when the book actually published and people were starting to read the book, I got lots of calls and texts like, we had no idea. Right. And again, that comes from moms. We know how to suppress what we're feeling and we know how to put on a good show. right?
Right.
We know how to smile pretty in the pictures, right? We know how to go into work and act like everything's okay. And, I just said, well, I mean, we just really didn't want the judgment. And there was a lot of fear around that, right? Even
Mhm.
in the church, right? Just what do people think? Why is she struggling? What did you miss?
Right.
How did you not see this? Right?
Or you don't have enough faith in it or
Right.
something along those
Well,
lines,
and can you
right.
just pray it out of her? Well,
Right.
sometimes it doesn't work like that,
Yeah.
right? And in mental health, there's just not a quick fix. It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
it's as severe as what Chloe went through or even worse, or if it's just dealing with anxiety on a daily basis that you feel like you can't walk outside of your house, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be one extreme or the other, but it's still, you have to know that like there's hope, right? And sometimes there's just not a quick fix. You have to walk through it and do the work. And
Right.
so people were very, some people weren't as receptive, right? Like they were like, I can't believe you didn't say anything. And that's okay, right? Like that's okay. But I think now the bigger part of writing the book, yes, it was cathartic. And yes, it was being obedient to God. But I also think it's more about telling those moms, you're not alone, right? Like that is the biggest thing to
Right.
me is to tell other moms, you're not alone. You're not failing, right? The fact that you're still showing up and that you're here and you're listening and you're praying and all of those things, that is what's going to get you through, right? And when
Yeah.
you have somebody to link arms with that says, I know this road isn't easy and there's zero judgment from this side, right?
Yeah.
That's really what women need and want, right? Is to feel seen and heard without judgment. All of our
Yeah.
stories are different, but God can use our stories to help someone else. And so even if the book only helps one person, then it's done what God said it was going to do, right?
Yeah.
That it was written to help that one person. And that's okay.
Mhm.
And I think for me, that's the bigger place of where I know that I needed to write the book because if it helps one person and that one mom doesn't feel so alone and isolated,
Yeah.
and she knows that she's not broken and that she's not the cause of her child's pain or her spouse's pain or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing is that I want moms to know that you're just not alone.
I think that if I'm if I say the honest thing, like that resonates so much with I just keep thinking about the person listening who thinks it's their fault or the person listening who doesn't know how to take that next step of maybe letting someone into their story or asking for help or whatever that is. And so I love that you have written something that will help someone do that. But I also know that the enemy lies and isolates because he doesn't want us to reach out. He doesn't want us to find that connection piece. And so I what would you or how would you encourage someone listening who is terrified to take that next step of connection, who is worried that if they actually open up that that it just won't work?
I mean, we don't know the outcomes, right? In any struggle that we
Mhm.
go through. All we can do is pray for our children, show up for them, tell them that you love them,
Yeah.
help them the best that we can, but we really have to just say and lay it at Jesus's feet. And sometimes you just have to say, okay, I can't fix this. I can't put a band-aid on it. I can't snap my
Yeah.
fingers like I could before and make it all better. And it's okay. So breathe, pray
Yeah.
about it, and just remember that you're not alone. And I just like I keep going back to that you're not alone because I really feel
Yeah.
like that is the message that moms need to hear. We as moms, we struggle with guilt and shame. Like mom guilt is real.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, and I hear it often from women. Well, I mean, if I would have just been paying more attention and I was there, right? Like, how did I miss the signs? Did I miss it when? which
Yeah.
is, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just these things, and you go back and you start honing in on every little thing like it's your fault and you missed it. But the reality is, it's not your fault. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, God never told us to carry burdens like this on our own. Never. We have to give it to him, and then we find support and community of those that have been there before, that know how to walk through those hard seasons, those refining seasons, and continue to press forward, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
get strength from one another, right? I mean, that's why women listen to speakers or to podcasts or things, because there is power when we're together, right?
Yeah, that's
And
good.
the other thing that I always think about, and like I know how this felt, is that you think about what the God called a mom to do, right? We are
Mhm.
called to be the nurturers. We are called to love and support our husbands, right? And to love and support and fiercely love our children. But what does the enemy do? He
Mhm.
gets in your head and says, well, this is your fault. You
Right.
missed it. You didn't see it. She's sick because of you, right? And like, what does that do to the mother?
Yeah.
It depletes her. It takes her to the lowest point that she's ever been.
Yeah.
Because the enemy knows that, like the mother, what our role is in the home, right? We are to be intercessors in prayer for our children and for our husbands. And if he can take us out, then his work is done.
Right. Then he's knocked us off our purpose.
So like being a mom is more than just managing the home and keeping the schedules. And we cannot, as moms, let the enemy fill our heads with lies and deception that knocks us out of that purpose.
Yeah.
We have to stand firm. And every time the enemy tries to creep in with some ridiculous lie that it's our fault, we have to go back and say, not today, not
Yeah.
today. Jesus is in my corner. And I think it's so important for moms to know that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is the
Yeah.
power that lives in you, and that you're a daughter of the king. And you
Yeah.
cannot be given over to the enemy. Like that is powerful. And when you realize your power as a mom and
Yeah.
your purpose, the enemy, that's he's gonna have to go whimpering back to where he came from.
Right. Jen, I hate that we have to wrap up so soon because I there's just so much goodness and I feel like you're leaving everyone listening, yes, especially moms, but not just moms listening to, with so much hope. You're leaving them with these just tangible ways of looking towards hope and also just that surrender that you spoke of. And I would love for you to just leave our friends listening maybe with a scripture that became your anchor in those dark nights. What is that tangible word of God that you had with you at your side?
So for me, it's Isaiah 41:10.
Mm.
Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will
Yeah.
strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. You think about the
Yeah.
power that is in that, right? The struggle's not easy. It's not. The storms are not easy. It wasn't easy when
Yeah.
Peter got out of the boat either.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see your way sometimes in the midst of those struggles.
Yeah.
But please do not mistake God's delay for his absence. And do not think that you are ever alone in these struggles.
Yeah. Jen, I'm so grateful for your voice and for the kingdom work that you do, and I am so hopeful that this message goes out and provides so much light and hope to whoever is listening, to whoever reads. And I would love for you to share with our friends how they can connect with you and how they can get your book.
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon. And then I have a website, warriormomcoach.net. So on that website, you can access the ebook. You can get free other resources like tips for, self-care, for empowering your teen.
Mm.
And then there's also a links to the Facebook group that I have that's for warrior moms. And in that Facebook group, it is where moms of all walks of life, all of our struggles are not the same,
Yeah.
but it's literally saying, who needs prayer this week? What did you find
Yeah.
joyful? Because I want to remember moms that, yes, you're not alone, and we are here to pray for you.
Yeah.
But remember, let's not forget to find the joy and the gratitude in the little things, right?
Yeah.
And so that's important. And so we try to build that into the group and just leave women feeling lifted up and empowered. So it's warriormomcoach.net. And there's, I mean, every links to everything, my blogs, my Facebook group, my VIP list, all of that.
Perfect. I love that you ended with joy. We started and ended with just finding that joy because I agree with you and just like holding space for, yeah, these tough things that we walk through, but also there is joy to be found. And that's what keeps us tethered to hope. And so, Jen, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Friends, I'm so glad you're here. I hope you leave each episode feeling loved and seen. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And while you're there, would you share it with someone? And if you found this to be encouraging, empowering, or it equipped you in any way, would you leave a rating? That helps new friends find us and join our community, and we would love to hear from you. Finally, don't forget that you can join us on Instagram and TikTok at halfway to Sunday. See you there.